Mr. Munchie?
Indians thought photos would steal their souls.
In this case, they'd be right.
You wake up in a pitch-black, cold metal room. The air is thick with the smell of rust and salt. You hear the ominous creaking of steel under immense pressure. As your eyes adjust to the darkness, you realize you're not in the doctor's office where you just had an experimental brain scan. You're somewhere else entirely. Somewhere impossible. Welcome to PATHOS-II, an underwater research facility at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. Welcome to a world where humanity as you know it no longer exists. Welcome to SOMA. In the vast ocean of horror video games, SOMA is a leviathan that drags you into the crushing depths of existential dread. Forget jump scares and grotesque monsters, although there is plenty of monsters. SOMA's terror seeps into your mind, forcing you to confront questions that will haunt you long after you've put down the controller. What makes you, you? Is it your body, your brain, your memories? And if a perfect copy of your mind existed, which one would be the real you? Developed by Frictional Games, the masters of psychological horror behind Amnesia, SOMA takes you on a journey that blurs the lines between human and machine, between consciousness and code. As you navigate the decaying halls of PATHOS-II, you'll encounter machines that speak with human voices, bodies twisted and merged with technology, and the chilling realization that in this world, death might not be the end, but immortality could be a fate far worse. SOMA doesn't just flirt with philosophical ideas, it grabs them by the throat and forces you to stare into the abyss of what it means to be human. Through its narrative and gameplay, it thrusts you into moral dilemmas with no right answers, choices that will make you question your own humanity, and confrontations with alternate versions of yourself that will leave you doubting the very nature of your existence. In this video essay, we're diving deep into the dark waters of SOMA's existential horror. We'll dissect its narrative, unravel its philosophical quandaries, and examine how it uses the unique properties of video games to explore questions that have puzzled great minds for centuries. But first, I just want to clarify something. This video will be two broadly different sections, the first being a narrative recap for those who don't know the story, and the second being a thorough analysis of the themes and how the terror is conveyed. So if you already know the story or just want the analysis, skip to here. Or don't. Please don't. But also, if you do enjoy the video at any point, please do make sure to like and subscribe, and maybe check out my socials. But back to the video. So steel yourself as we descend into the abyss of consciousness. Prepare to have your perceptions shattered and your beliefs challenged. Because in the world of SOMA, the true horror isn't what lurks in the shadows. It's the realization that you might not be who you think you are. Are you ready to confront the existential terror of SOMA?
Are you human?
In the quiet corners of our minds, we all harbour a fundamental fear. The fear of losing ourselves. SOMA's narrative delves deep into this primal terror, weaving a tale that challenges our very understanding of identity, consciousness, and what it means to be human. Before we navigate through SOMA's haunting narrative, I'm reminded of my own first encounter with this philosophical nightmare. It was 2015 and I was just 11 years old, far too young perhaps, for the existential weight this game would impose on me. I remember sitting in the dim light of my room, the glow of the screen illuminating my wide-eyed face as I watched a playthrough of SOMA. At that age, I was just expecting just another scary game, maybe some monster to jump out of the darkness, like FNAF. What I got instead was a profound and disturbing journey into the nature of consciousness and identity. The concepts SOMA presented were so far beyond anything I had contemplated before. The idea that a person could be copied, that consciousness could be transferred, these were notions that shook the foundations of my young understanding of self and existence. I recall the moment Simon realizes he's not in his original body, part spoilers, but it's pretty essential to the narrative, that he's a copy of a long-dead man. It wasn't just scary, it was paradigm shifting. For weeks afterward, I found myself lying awake at night, grappling with questions I couldn't fully articulate. What made me, me? If I were copied, which one would be the real me? Now, years later, as I revisit SOMA, I find these questions haven't lost their power. If anything, they've grown more potent, more relevant. My understanding has deepened, allowing me to appreciate the nuances I missed in my youth. The ethical dilemmas that once seemed abstract now feel urgent and personal. The early exposure to such complex ideas through the medium of a video game demonstrates the unique power of interactive storytelling. SOMA didn't just tell me a story, it made me live it, feel it, and grapple with it in a way that has stayed with me for years. As we continue our journey through PATHOS-II, I invite you to consider not just the philosophical questions SOMA raises, but how encouraging these ideas might shape our understanding of ourselves and our world. For me, it was a transformative experience that began in childhood and continues to resonate to this day. But to begin, our story starts with Simon Jarrett, a young man whose life is shattered in an instant. A car crash leaves him with severe brain damage and takes the life of his friend Ashley Hall. In those few terrible seconds, Simon's world contracts to a point of pain and loss. Little does he know, this tragedy is merely the prelude to a far more profound displacement. Seeking treatment for his injuries, Simon agrees to an experimental brain scan. It's a decision born of desperation and hope, a chance to reclaim some semblance of his former life. As he prepares for the procedure, drinking a concoction ominously named tracer fluid, Simon can't shake a creeping sense of unease. After downing this concoction, he takes a look at his emails. Inside, he finds the email confirming his slot for the brain scan tomorrow, an email from his doctor prescribing him prazosin, a medicine used to treat high blood pressure, especially important due to the high frequency of nightmares that Simon has been experiencing, almost certainly due to the accident, as his brain threatens to hemorrhage under high stress. As his doctor puts it, excessive stress could be fatal. Simon then sees a draft email that he had written but failed to send, intending to be sent to his work, saying that he wouldn't be in due to the appointment, which he then sends. A reminder of the mundane and the ordinary, a nice break before the nightmare we are about to find ourselves submerged in. Simon leaves his apartment and takes the train, receiving a phone call from his friend that works with him, saying that it'll be okay with him not there and stating that they had hired someone new, someone to replace Ashley, the girl who had died in the accident. This moment of tension is broken by his friend joking about how he hopes that he can cure his dying soon problem, perhaps the last light-hearted moment we are allowed. But this respite is short-lived as we soon arrive at the doctor's office. The place seems to be abandoned, the reception desolate, not a soul to be seen. If we look around, we can find a piece of a journal claiming that David Munchie, the man we are here to see, is not a doctor, but a student of computer science. Certainly doesn't inspire confidence, but we continue on, managing to find Munchie in his office, surrounded by technology and a chair that resembles an electric chair. However, Munchie reassures us that the scan will be as simple as having your picture taken. However, it does little to quell Simon's growing anxiety. As we sit in the chair, Simon remarks that the Indians thought that cameras steal souls, a sentiment that will soon hit far too close to home. The last thing Simon remembers is a blinding flash of light, then darkness. Simon's awakening in PATHOS-II is a moment of pure existential terror. Consciousness returns not to the sterile comfort of a doctor's office, but to a nightmarish realm of darkness and decay. The air is thick with the acrid smell of ozone and rot. Distant machinery groans and clanks, a hellish industrial lullaby. As Simon's eyes adjust to the gloom, he sees walls covered in a strange, pulsating black substance that seems to writhe with a life of its own. Panic sets in as Simon tries to make sense of his surroundings. His mind reels, unable to bridge the gap between the brain scan and this alien environment. He calls out, his voice echoing in the empty corridors, met only by the indifferent hum of failing equipment. The realization that he is utterly alone in this strange place hits him with crushing force. This awakening sets the tone for SOMA's entire narrative. It thrusts the players, through Simon, into a world where nothing can be taken for granted, not even the continuity of one's own existence. The horror of Simon's situation is not just in the hostile environment of PATHOS-II, but in the gradual devastating realization that the nature of his own being is now uncertain. As Simon takes his first tentative steps into the decaying halls of PATHOS-II, he's not just embarking on a journey through a ruined facility, but on an exploration of the very essence of consciousness and identity. The true terror of SOMA begins here, in this moment of awakening, where the line between man and machine, between continuity and rupture, blurs beyond recognition.
Hey, can you hear me?
Simon's journey through the nightmarish world of PATHOS-II begins in Upsilon, the geothermal power plant of the underwater facility. The transition from the brain scan in Toronto to awakening in Upsilon is jarring and disorientating, both for Simon and the player. Simon finds himself in a dark, claustrophobic room surrounded by unfamiliar technology and the unsettling sound of distant machinery. As Simon explores Upsilon, the full extent of the station's decay becomes apparent. The walls are covered in a strange pulsating black substance that seems almost alive. Sparks fly from malfunctioning equipment, and the air is thick with the smell of ozone. This environment immediately establishes the game's atmosphere of isolation and wrongness, hinting at the horrors to come. Simon's first task is to find an Omni tool, a device crucial for navigating PATHOS-II. This search serves as both a tutorial for the game's mechanics and an opportunity for the player to begin piecing together what has happened to the facility. Through computer terminals and audio logs, Simon and the player start to uncover the history of the station and the catastrophe that has befallen Earth. Here we first establish fleeting contact with Catherine Chun, the woman who will soon become our only source of seeming friendship in the metallic halls of PATHOS-II. Still, the signal soon cuts out as she leaves us with this.
I'm sorry I didn't catch that. We lost another relay. Just listen, head for the comm center upstairs. I'll wait here.
This leads to one of the most unsettling early encounters with a robot that believes it's human. This robot, moving in jerky, unnatural motions, speaks with a human voice and seems confused about its surroundings, laying injured on a robot assembly line. We converse with this robot, claiming to be Carl Semken. This is seemingly contradicted by us finding the corpse of someone wearing a name tag displaying the same name. This immediately opens many questions about the true nature of this place, and serves as a chilling precursor to Simon's revelation about his own nature, and raises early questions about the nature of consciousness and identity. Then the game presents us with the first moral decision of the playthrough. To pass through the area housing this faux human robot and get to the communication area to reach out to Catherine once more, we need to reroute power to the bulkhead sealing the area shut. To do this, we have two options. Reroute power that effectively tortures the robot human for the rest of time, leaving him stranded in agony for the foreseeable future. Or cut off the power to the area, killing the robot for good, but allowing a hulking abomination of robot and goo into the area where it will hunt you down. Either way, we continue our journey, finally reaching the communication room. It's here where Simon first makes proper contact with Catherine Chun via the radio. Her voice provides a lifeline in the oppressive environment of the station, giving Simon and the player a goal: reach Lambda. However, Catherine's explanations are vague and cut short by the dome we are inside collapsing, flooding the room. It is here where we learn that Simon is not in his own body. Instead, it was merely his perceptions trying to keep up a facade of normalcy. Instead, he is now inside a diving suit welded to the skin of a long-dead woman, fused together by the power of structure gel, a force that we will discuss later. This sudden expelling onto the ocean surface heralds a chance to journey from Upsilon to Lambda. This sequence dramatically expands the game's scope, revealing the vast, dark underwater ocean that now encapsulates all of human existence. The experience of walking along the ocean floor with the pressure of the entire ocean bearing down creates a palpable sense of vulnerability and isolation, broken only by a small robot unit that helpfully beeps and helps us out. Thanks, buddy.
Have you looked at yourself lately? You're a walking, talking diving suit with some electronics slapped on for good measure.
I don't.
You don't want to think about it? We'll start thinking about it.
I don't want to do.
Upon reaching Lambda, Simon's hope for answers is initially frustrated. The station appears to be in as much disarray as Upsilon, with no sign of Catherine. As Simon explores Lambda, he encounters more evidence of the crew's fate, including unsettling audio logs that hint at the psychological toll of the Earth's destruction. The most significant event at Lambda is Simon's discovery of Catherine, or rather the machine containing Catherine's consciousness. This revelation is a pivotal moment in the game, the first major twist outside of Simon's own identity that forces Simon to confront the nature of his existence. Catherine explains the reality of their situation. The Earth has been destroyed by a comet. PATHOS-II is all that remains of humanity, and both she and Simon are not in their original bodies, but copies of human consciousness in artificial bodies. The scene is crucial for setting up the game's central philosophical questions. Simon must grapple with the fact that he is not the original Simon, but a copy with implanted memories. This raises profound questions about the nature of self and continuity of consciousness that persist throughout the entire game. It is here where we are stalked by these things, known as fleshes, who are blind and will seemingly teleport in and out of existence. Getting too close or staring at these mutated monstrosities causes our circuits to start breaking down, making stealth paramount to surviving this section. It's also at Lambda that Catherine reveals the existence of the ARC project, humanity's last hope for some form of survival outside the confines of the station. The Ark, a virtual world containing scans of human minds ready to be launched into space, becomes the driving goal for the rest of the game. We use the terminal to discover the current location of the Ark, finding it to still be located in a place known as Tau, a place where goods are loaded onto the space gun, a massive orbital delivery system that the Ark was meant to be shot out of. It is here where Simon convinces Catherine to try and launch the Ark, to offer humanity some form of salvation amongst the stars, a mere glimmer of hope divorced almost entirely from the watery grave that the remnants of humanity have found themselves in throughout the rest of PATHOS-II. We transfer Catherine from her broken robot body, slotting her Cortex chip into our Omni tool, allowing us to take her with us, and providing us with, albeit fleeting, some semblance of company. With Omni tool in tow, we leave the condemned frame of Lambda and make our way back onto the ocean floor. However, our immediate concerns lay with continuing onto Theta, the living quarters of PATHOS-II. To achieve this end, we must find a functional submarine that our now Catherine-ified Omni tool can be fitted into so she can take control. We find a battered submarine directly outside Lambda, which we attempt to hijack, but it is too withered and decayed. However, it does point us in the right direction, to the sunken vessel Curie, the wreckage of which we can find and enter nearby. In the wrecked remains of Curie, we see visions of fire and brimstone. Monitors adorn the walls that tell the story of the comet that wiped out all life on the mainland. Firestorm tsunamis and the broken husk of humanity can be seen through these monitors, flicking through PowerPoints of dismay and destruction, compounded by the voice logs of the captain.
Signs of life. Over. No. Firestorm covering the continent.
Curie only being spared the worst of the surface damage due to it being part submersible, owing to its status as a vessel meant for transporting goods to PATHOS-II. But regardless of the tales of tragedy that adorn the halls, we are here for a mission and we manage to locate a functional escape submarine. However, we cannot free ourselves from Curie without first disabling the reactor, as the safety locks are still in place. We venture deeper into Curie to disable the reactor, dodging another flesher as we reach the core. This area is as equally corrupted as the rest of the station. Flesh-like connections make up the remnants of the ship's aging reactor. It is these constructs that we pull out of the reactor which critically destabilizes the core, unlocking the locks but causing a mass meltdown of the ship's previously functioning balance systems. We make a mad dash back through the ship, the very structure collapsing around us, narrowly avoiding the flesher. We run and run and run, and finally make it to the submarine, barely making it before the creature caught up to us, the sealed hatch of the submarine being banged on aggressively, the only remaining sign of the monster. Short-lived as we launch off into the void and begin making our way to Theta. However, the journey is soon cut short as the reactor on the Curie goes critical, causing the vessel to explode violently. The resultant shockwave knocking us off course, causing us to crash land on a plateau. We have reached not Theta, but Delta, as we are knocked into unconsciousness. Waking up in our upturned vessel, we find ourselves trapped inside the cramped submarine, unable to open the door. However, not to fear, as our robot friend from earlier returns once again to our rescue, and frees us to explore the sparse area that is Delta. There's not much of note here other than the story of a man known as Akers, which will come into play in Theta. Following the story laid out by notes and computer entries, we learn of Akers' slow descent into madness as he plays mass amounts of chess and slowly but surely falls to the allure of the WoW. You may be asking now, what is the WoW? And honestly, good point. I probably should have covered this already, but the WoW, also known as the Warden Unit, is a massive station-spanning artificial intelligence that governs all of PATHOS-II with one prime directive: to preserve humanity. That was taken to the extreme after the sudden and violent wiping out of humanity on the surface. The directive slowly changed and corrupted as the AI has no true idea of what being alive is, leading to the creation of mockingbirds, the robots that seems to have human scans inside of them, brain scans taken in the same vein as Simon at the start of the game, and proxies, which is what Akers soon becomes, humans corrupted by structured gel. Structured gel is essentially what the WoW uses as tendrils of its influence. Initially used for maintenance and construction, it soon becomes a palpable tool that the WoW uses to preserve humanity. We see this throughout PATHOS-II as we find people wired into the walls, plastered in structured gel, keeping them alive and in a sort of dreamlike state. Humanity has been preserved, but in a deeply inhuman state. Akers, having gone insane with the crushing reality of life on the seabed, instead gives up to the WoW, stuffing himself full of structure gel before venturing to Theta, abandoning his refuge at Delta to give himself in service of the WoW's goals. But with that covered, we continue through Delta as we retune an antenna to call down a Zeppelin that can take us to Theta. However, as we board the transport and slot Catherine into the ship with the Omnitool, who is shocked as the perception of time ceases when she is removed from any terminal, we learn that we need a new Cortex chip to get to Theta itself, and that can only be taken from one of the two robots in the area. We are giving a stun baton to achieve this end, and it is here where we are met with yet another moral dilemma. There are two options for gaining the chip: the K8 robot unit, which has helped us the entire time we have been on the seabed, who communicates slowly in chips and beeps, or a mockingbird in the area of the man known as Javid Goya, who only rambles incessantly about petty drama between colleagues and is almost completely unresponsive to the player's attempt to communicate. Ultimately, the choice is up to the player, but I chose to end Goya, as I wasn't about to kill my robot friend, as we beat and beat and beat on the robot before it succumbs to the stun baton, salvaging the chip. It is here where, heartbreakingly, the K8 unit now seems fearful of us, running from us and making beeps of alarm if we try and approach. Regardless, we journey on to Theta, boarding the Zeppelin and making our way slowly but surely to our destination. As we make our way into Theta, we are met with an area that is just as devoid of people and power as the rest of the facility so far. But through creative application of some rubbish lying around, we break our way into a control center just outside of the Dunbat, the only submarine capable of taking us into the abyss to venture after the Ark and make our way to Tau. As Simon slots Catherine into the control station, she turns the power on and attempts to free the sub, but unfortunately we need a security cipher that, of course, only the obviously missing human crew of Theta would have access to. Fortunately, we soon stumble across Catherine's lab, where she had worked on the Ark and taken multiple brain scans of staff in Theta. Unfortunately, as always, it is not that simple, as we must venture into the lower levels to reset the power and send the wattage to the lab to turn these machines on. So we carry on into the depths, passing still living humans welded to the floor by the tendrils of structure gel, and into the server room. It is here where we meet our first proxy, a human subsumed by the structure gel, as it roams the stacked decks of servers, shuffling between them. The proxies, like the fleshes before them, are also seemingly blind, so through a combination of using items as a distraction and slow and methodical stealth, we manage to reset the power and return to Catherine's lab. It is here where we make a number of discoveries ourselves. First can be found on a terminal on the left of the room, where we find the brain scans of both our protagonists, Simon Jarrett, and the scan of David Munchie, the comp-sci student who scanned our brain at the start. These are legacies, scans that became the building blocks of the advanced brain scans that dominate every level of SOMA. But this isn't the only discovery we find in this terminal, as Simon's file has some audio logs detailing the aftermath of our initial brain scan. The first and second log details the immediate aftermath, that of the scan going completely normal, and Simon being told that Munchie will contact him soon. Normal stuff, really. With the second log continuing this, detailing a regimen of medicine and a diet that should help Simon, well, avoid the whole dying thing. But then the third and final log is in stark contrast. As we click play, we are met with a heart rate monitor, and I'll just let the rest play.
The model was sound. It should have worked.
It's not your fault, David.
I really wish things had turned out differently.
Yeah, me too.
I was supposed to save you.
Hey, you got my brain on file. Maybe you can put it to some use.
Yeah, who knows? You'd be okay with that? Using it for my research?
Sure. It's like a part of me lives on or something. Like a donated organ. You know what sucks about dying?
What?
The crash. Everything up till now. The brain damage. You guys, everything. Has made my life so much more real. I started thinking about all the things I was going to do. I'd never been more excited to be alive. All that hope. Wasted.
It is here where we learn that ultimately the brain scan did nothing in preventing the inevitable. Simon still died, and ultimately, whilst Simon did become the basis and proof of concept for further brain scan technology, the scan did little but confine his consciousness to further suffering, but that's a topic for later on. Continuing on, to obtain the security cipher, we must use the brain scan of Brandon Wan, and trick him into providing us with the information we provide. Morally, this is of course extremely dubious, repeatedly reviving and erasing an arguably live construct solely to extract information bears significant philosophical quandaries, which Simon points out with the twisted nature of this, but alas, it has to be done to continue on. However, no matter what we do, Brandon figures out it's a trick and assumes it's the WoW trying to get into his head. To attempt to find something that we can use to earn his trust, we make our way to the living quarters of the crew. Before I cover what we managed to find on Brandon, however, I want to bring your attention to the seeming cult of continuity that seemed to overtake some of the crew of PATHOS-II, that involves killing oneself after being scanned and uploaded to the Ark to ensure the only version of you that still lives is the one inside the Ark, to ensure that the continuity of you as a person continues smoothly from one iteration to the next. This idea starts with one man, Mark Sarang, and soon spread to two others that eventually led to the Ark project being suspended because of fears of it spreading even more. But moving on, it is here in the living quarters of Theta where we discovered that Brandon was in relationship with another employee, Alice Costa, the woman who was getting her scan done at the same time. So we return to the simulation and fake Alice being there to lure Brandon into a sense of comfort and manage to drag the security cipher out of him. It is here where we get the choice whether to delete Brandon's brain scan, ensuring that he can never be used again, either by us or the WoW, which I chose to do, content to let his memory lie. Regardless, we continue on to free the Dunbat, and we see one of the most memorable sequences in the game, as we move on to free the submarine. However, we discover that the WoW has uploaded a human consciousness into the Dunbat system. When activated, the submarine, confused and terrified, screams and curses Catherine for subjecting him to this fate, promised paradise yet stuck in a cold metal body entirely devoid of any humanity, as it breaks free from its dock and screams and disappears into the ocean. This scene serves as a poignant example of the WoW's misguided attempts at preservation, and the horrifying implications of consciousness transfer. This horrifying revelation makes Simon and Catherine's plan to change, forcing them to consider a drastic alternative: transferring Simon's consciousness into a heavily modified deep-sea diving suit. However, the suits needed and the Abyss climber rig needed to descend into the Abyss lay at Omicron, so our next destination is fixed. Before we can reach Omicron, however, we must venture through the remnants of Theta, coming across an experimental version of the Ark, as we stop to allow Catherine to retrieve some essential data about how to upload brain scans to the Ark, so Simon and Catherine can upload themselves too, and also find solace amongst the stars. After that is done, we venture further on, coming across an elevator that needs repairing, but as we attempt to fix it, we stumble across a problem. Acres, his corrupted and bloated form, roams the halls looking for you, aiming to add you to the ever-expansive WoW systems, driven by routines and structure gel. Through deft stealth and creative use of door locks, however, we manage to repair the elevator and narrowly get inside the elevator, mere moments before Acres is on us. But this is not the end of our troubles, as the elevator jams halfway down, and we are forced to make the rest of the journey on foot. Entering a sub-corridor, we try and continue, but are interrupted by Acres once more, as he rushes us and knocks us out. We awake in a hazy, dreamlike state, seemingly back in Toronto in 2015 with Ashley, the girl who died in the car accident, by our side, stating that the two of them are in love, and to stay in this tiny slice of heaven. But like all dreams, this cannot last, the dream getting hazier and hazier until Simon eventually breaks out, and through the wistful tendrils of constructed gel as we push ourselves up and onwards. We sneak past proxy upon proxy upon proxy, narrowly avoiding their embrace through stealth, like all of the other monster-based sections, until we find ourselves in a small room with a lever, which we pull just before Acres catches up to us once again, the lever flushing both us into the ocean floor and on towards Upsilon. I just want to take a minute to say that throughout these early sections, Upsilon, Lambda, and Theta, SOMA carefully constructs its world and gradually introduces its core themes. The game's atmosphere grows increasingly oppressive, the philosophical questions become more complex, and the true nature of Simon's existence, and by extension the player's role in the game, becomes more uncertain. These sections lay the groundwork for the even more challenging and thought-provoking experiences that await in the depths of PATHOS-II. As Simon and Catherine's journey deepens, the horrors of the station become more profound, and the philosophical questions more challenging. Their paths takes them to the darkest depths of the facility, and the human side. Arriving at Omicron, we try and enter through the main entrance, only to find that the entire section of PATHOS-II is on lockdown, and as such we have to find a way to lower the quarantine to enter. Looking for a way to bypass this, we enter a substation located just outside the main entrance. Inside we find a terminal to bypass the lockdown after solving a puzzle, and so we continue on our journey. Attempting to enter the now unlocked main entrance still yields no result, as this entrance has been sealed shut, and as such we must go around to the side entrance. We make our way there, passing multiple corpses of some of the remnants of Theta's population after the proxies took over their station and they were forced to make their way to Omicron, only to find out that they couldn't get in. Making our way through the crumbling megastructure of Omicron outside, decaying and rusted parts falling around us, we find an entrance and go inside. Within Omicron, we find a bloodbath. Corpses lacking their heads adorn the halls, but considering what Simon has seen so far, these do not seem to faze him. Passing through these corpse-covered halls, we find our way to the dive room and find a suitable power suit, but it's already occupied by the corpse of a woman named Rayleigh Herber. Catherine proposes a drastic solution. They'll scan Simon's mind again and place it into a new cortex chip in Rayleigh's body. But first, we need several components to make the corpse-stuffed suit suitable for Simon's consciousness. A new battery pack, a new cortex chip, and some structure gel. So Simon sets off into the research wings to find these items. However, returning to the central chamber, we see something. A corrupted body stands briefly inside the central containment chamber before disappearing. And as we venture around the station and look at terminals, it seems this mysterious entity is attempting to communicate with us, stating phrases like, "We have to stop it, stop the WoW," and "an eternal nightmare." Certainly unsettling, but I'll clarify more on this later. Grabbing the structure gel and cortex chip from around the research station, we are just left with the battery pack on the lowest floor. We move into the dark chamber only to be met with crying. A woman-shaped WoW construct blocks our path, her head taken up by machinery and her limbs adorned with blades, begging for us to leave her alone if we get too close. Unfortunately, we have to pass her to get the battery pack, so dashing in and tanking a hit from her, we manage to retrieve the pack and return to the upper levels. As we attempt to return to the dive room, we find our path blocked by the same woman from below. But we cannot let her stop us, so we run past her, Catherine locking the doors behind us just before she catches up to us, locking us inside the dive room. Putting the gathered materials inside the power suit, we sit down and prepare for the transfer. The process seems successful at first, with Simon waking up in the new body. However, the true horror of the situation quickly becomes apparent. The original Simon is still there, unconscious in the pilot seat. This moment forces both Simon and the player to confront the reality of the copying process. There is no transfer of consciousness, only creation of a new copy.
You know it's not magic. You were copied. The sleeping Simon in the seat was copied, and now you are here, just like Simon lived on in Toronto.
God damn you, Kath. 2 Simons? There can't be 2 Simons.
What did you think would happen?
That you were gonna take my mind and put it into another body, like a brain transplant.
I'm sorry, it wouldn't work that way.
You realize how messed up this is?
Please, I didn't mean to upset you.
How did you expect me to react to this shit?
Please stop.
You're fucking disgusting.
Simon rages against the reality of the situation, blaming Catherine and calling her sick and twisted for making him do this. The player must then make a gut-wrenching decision: euthanize the original Simon or leave him to wake up alone in Omicron. The scene is pivotal, explicitly demonstrating the game's central theme about the nature of consciousness and continuity of self. It raises disturbing questions. Which Simon is the real Simon? Are they both equally valid? The existential implications are staggering, challenging our very understanding of what makes us us. But regardless of our choice, we make our way to the climber outside, placing Catherine in the Omnitool slot. We venture down into the abyss, accompanied with the most awkward small talk of all time.
Have we figured out what happens when we die yet? Is that even possible? If there's some kind of afterlife, do you think my place is taken? The real me died like 100 years ago. Is there still room for me? And what about the Simon I killed at Omicron? What do you think, Catherine? Is there a heaven full of redundant copies of the same people? Is there someone up there who called me an imposter?
Until she eventually opens up to us.
I don't know what to say. I don't want to upset you.
Say anything.
When I was little, I used to climb the stairs all the way to the top of the building. And I can still feel how I had to, tuck my arms so I could push the heavy steel door open. Well, the first time that I dared go up there, I stepped out onto the roof and watched the smog rise and fall over Taipei. I got all the way up to the corner ledge and, I felt the warm wind in my hair, and the sun was setting and the streets below were shadowed by the tall buildings. The people pushing through the crowd flowed like paint from an artist's brush. Street food vendors filled the air with aromas of all my favorite foods. For a brief moment, I felt connected to the world in a way that I never had before. It was the most profound feeling of comfort and sense of belonging I could ever hope for. I really never felt the same way again, but I went up to the roof many times after. I'm not religious, but I can see why people would be. The privilege of being makes a strong case, at least every once in a while.
Do you still feel that sense of awe? Even like this?
Things are different, but we're still here.
What's the point of going on? Everyone's gone. All the people still left are digital copies trapped in computers at the bottom of the sea. We'll never be able to rebuild or reclaim what we were.
Are you really so unhappy being what you are, or is this about the man who went for a scan 100 years ago?
Both, I guess. When I was back in Toronto, even the worst case, the darkest futures I could predict, they at least included my previous life somehow. I feel so uprooted. There's nothing here that I recognize, nothing that makes me feel like I belong. Even if we make it to the Ark, would it be any different? I'd still be alone. No friends. No family.
You could make new friends. I'm sure everyone would like to know the time traveler. If not, you still have...
As we descend into the abyss, the game's atmosphere becomes even more oppressive. As we sit in the seat, the mysterious WoW-corrupted man lands on the climber and enters, saying that he would make preparations for us, presumably with destroying the WoW, before seemingly disappearing once more. But moving past this, as I will explain later, we descend onto the very bottom of the ocean floor, filled with WoW-corrupted creatures and an obscuring level of wind. Guided by visions of the man and the lights that still somehow stand despite the brutal atmosphere, we manage to find our way into Tau, only to be met with a corrupted monster wearing the same power suit that allows us to brave these crushing pressures. A pursuit begins, this entity being the fastest and strongest we've encountered so far, but through a cat-and-mouse game of opening and closing doors, as this creature is more than capable of banging down doors, we manage to pass him, reaching a ladder and climbing into Tau's common area. Here we find the remnants of most of Theta's refugees, alongside those who were trying to take the Ark to Phi, either dead or being sustained by tendrils of the WoW. As the voice of the WoW-corrupted figure, now inside our head, urges us to move on, that there is nothing of importance here. But this is not true, as entering the infirmary we are met with a scene of profound tragedy. Here we find the Ark, humanity's last hope, but it's guarded by Sarah Lindwall, the last living human on the planet. Sarah is barely clinging to life, sustained only by a life support machine long after food has run out. This scene powerfully illustrates the cost of the Ark project. While it preserves human minds, it has led to suffering for those left behind, standing only now as a beacon for a humanity that is long dead, with the only semblance of hope being to launch it into the atmosphere and hope that something in the dark vastness of the cosmos offers some form of salvation. Here, the player is faced with yet another moral dilemma. Should they end Sarah's suffering or leave her on life support? The choice forces contemplation on the nature of life, the ethics of euthanasia, and the cost of progress. It's a poignant reminder of the human toll behind the grand philosophical questions the game explores, and a question of human agency, as Sarah Lindwall herself wants to be put down. She doesn't want to be forced to suffer alone at the bottom of the ocean as the last human alive. After choosing how to handle the Sarah situation, I personally put her down, but it is a deeply personal choice. We claim the Ark and carry on through Tau to the dive room, hooking the Ark up to a system that will take it to Phi for us, as we are forced to flood the room as the pipes don't work anymore. We are flushed back onto the ocean floor. It is here, in the Abyss, where Simon finally meets Johann Ross, a horribly mutated human who is the voice and person that we have been seeing since Omicron. Ross reveals that he was part of the team responsible for the WoW, and now seeks to destroy it. His character introduces a new level of moral ambiguity. Is destroying the WoW the right thing to do, even if it's the last bastion of life on Earth? Ross's appearance and mannerisms are deeply unsettling, blurring the line between human and monster, much like the ethical lines the game continually blurs. Ross then leads Simon to Site Alpha, the heart of the WoW. This section delves deeper into the nature of the WoW and its misguided attempts to fulfill its directive of preserving human life. The WoW's creations that we have seen throughout the playthrough, the fleshes, the proxies, even the robot woman that we encountered in Omicron, serve as horrifying examples of preservation without consideration for quality of life. At Alpha, Simon faces perhaps the most consequential choice in the game, whether to destroy the WoW. This decision is obviously left to the player, reflecting the moral complexity of the situation. On one hand, the WoW's actions are undeniably horrific, creating suffering in its attempt to preserve life. On the other hand, it's the last thing actively maintaining any form of life on Earth. This choice forces players to weigh the value of existence itself against the quality of that existence, drawing close to the center of the WoW, a literal pulsating heart that is responsible for the corruption of PATHOS-II. We are told by Johann that the structure gel we used to stitch our suit together was specifically designed to be anathema to the WoW, and that if we insert our arm into the heart of the WoW, it will destroy it from the inside, dooming the remaining humans to death, but freeing them from an eternity of life not truly lived. I chose to destroy the WoW, choosing to place the future of humanity on the Ark, and wanting to free those it has in its grasp. Simon inserts his arm into the machine as it rips it off fully and begins to subsume the foreign entity. Simon stumbles back out of shock and passes out. Regardless of what you choose, however, the aftermath is undeniably chaotic. Ross is attacked by a Leviathan creature, one of the WoW's most terrifying creations, as he attempts to kill Simon for being the only cure that the WoW could use to adapt to this seemingly biological weapon. Simon's escape from Alpha is a harrowing experience, driving home the hostility of the deep sea environment and the danger of the WoW's creations. As we dodge the same Leviathan that consumed Johann, having to duck in and out of cover before we finally make it to Phi.
Whoa. Is this... Did it work?
As Simon reaches sci-fi, the weight of his journey and the profound questions it has raised bears down upon him with crushing force. The Omega space gun, humanity's last hope for some form of continuity, looms before him. It's here in these final moments that SOMA delivers its most devastating blows to our understanding of consciousness and identity. With trembling hands, Simon and Catherine prepare the Ark for launch. The air is thick with tension, a mixture of hope and dread. We grab the Ark from where it was deposited after leaving Tau, and take it to load into the bullet that the space gun will use to fire it into orbit. However, as we find the loading chamber, we also find the corpse of Catherine, the real Catherine, learning that she was killed by her colleagues for attempting to carry on with launching the Ark into space. The others wanting to keep the Ark safe at the bottom of the ocean, not wanting to risk launching it through a barrel that may not take the launch, and then through unknown amount of dust and debris in the atmosphere. Catherine, obviously seeing the project as hers, retorts stating that the Ark is some semblance of hope in the cold void of space, being powered for significantly longer by the rejuvenating rays of the sun, than waiting to die at the bottom of the ocean with a power supply that will not last. Attempting to load it herself, one of her colleagues, Ian Penterson, takes a wrench, attempting to stop her, but accidentally kills her in the process. Catherine, as one would imagine, takes this harshly, wondering why they would do such a thing. But alas, there isn't time for her to ponder it for long as we load the bullet and venture in to find the control rig for the space gun. Sitting in the pilot seat for the crane that loads the gun, we place the bullet in, and the bullet is carried off into the greatest space gun. The launch sequence initiates. They hurriedly scan themselves, expecting to awaken within the digital paradise of the Ark. The moment stretches, every second stretching and stretching, filled with the promise of escape from the decaying horror of PATHOS-II. As the upload inches closer and closer until it finally completes. Then, in a heartbeat, the promise shatters.
I'm still here. I'm still here. Catherine? Catherine?
I'm here.
What the hell happened? What went wrong?
Nothing. They're out there, among the stars. We're here.
No. We were getting on the Ark. I saw it. It finished loading just before it launched.
Yeah, I saw.
Then why are we still here?
Simon, I can't keep telling you how it works. You won't listen. You know why we're here. You were copied onto the Ark. You just didn't carry over. You lost the coin toss. We both did. Just like Simon and Omicron. Just like the man who died in Toronto 100 years ago.
No. This is bullshit. We came all this way. We launched the Ark.
I know it sucks. But our copies are up there. Catherine and Simon are both safe on the Ark. Be happy for them.
Are you crazy? We're gonna die down here with those fuckers living at large on a spaceship. They're not us. They're not us.
I'm sorry you feel that way, Simon. I'm proud of what we did. We made sure that something of the hundreds of thousands of years of human history survives, that something lives on.
No. Fuck this. Fuck this. Fuck you. Fuck you, Catherine. You lied. And I believed in you. I trusted you. You said we're getting on the fucking Ark.
We are on the Ark, you idiot. I didn't lie. I can't be responsible for your goddamn ignorance.
Fuck!
Simon's eyes open, but he's not in the Ark. He's still in the launch chair at Phi. The same decaying walls surrounding him, the same oppressive weight of the ocean above. Confusion gives way to dawning horror as the truth becomes clear. He hasn't been transferred to the Ark. He's still here, a copy left behind. This moment is SOMA's cruelest twist, the culmination of all its philosophical provocations. Simon's desperate plea, "Why didn't you tell me it wouldn't work?" is met with Catherine's cold and calculated logic. There is no transfer, there's only a copy. The Simon and Catherine in the Ark are as real as the ones left behind, but they are not the same individuals. The existential implications of this revelation are staggering. If consciousness can be copied but not move, what does that mean for the continuity of self? Is the Simon in the Ark the real Simon, living on in a digital paradise? Or is this Simon, abandoned in the depths, the authentic continuation of his being? The game offers no easy answers, leaving the player to grapple with these profound questions. As the reality of their situation sinks in, Simon and Catherine's final conversation is a symphony of despair and philosophical anguish. Simon rails against the unfairness of it all, his words echoing in the empty halls of Phi. Catherine tries to explain, to rationalize, but her words offer little comfort in the face of such a fundamental existential crisis. Then, in a final cruel twist, Catherine's systems overload. Her voice distorts, breaks, and then falls silent. Simon is left truly alone, the last conscious being in a dead world, stranded at the bottom of the ocean. His anguished cries go unanswered, swallowed by the indifferent sea. This moment of absolute solitude is perhaps SOMA's most horrifying. Simon, a copy of a man out of time, is now cut off from even the illusion of human connection. The weight of his isolation, the vastness of time stretching before him, is almost unthinkable. Will he power down, choosing oblivion over this torment? Or will he persist, a lone consciousness in a world of machines and monsters? Yet, even as we grapple with Simon's fate, SOMA isn't finished with us. The epilogue provides a stark counterpoint, a final philosophical provocation. We see another Simon, the copy successfully uploaded to the Ark, awaking in a digital paradise. This Simon is blissfully unaware of his counterpart's fate. He marvels at the beauty of the virtual world, reunites with Catherine, and looks forward to an eternity of peace and possibility.
Catherine? Catherine! I can't believe we actually made it.
Well, we did.
I'm so relieved.
It's okay, Simon. Everything's all right now.
As the Ark floats through the cosmos, carrying its cargo of scanned minds, we're left with a series of haunting questions. Is the Simon in the Ark truly living, or merely a sophisticated simulation? Does his happiness have meaning, knowing it's built on a foundation of suffering and loss? And what of the Simon left behind? Is his existence any less real or valuable? SOMA's ending refuses to provide easy answers. Instead, it challenges us to confront the deepest questions of existence. What is the self? Is consciousness transferable or even definable? What gives life meaning in a universe of infinite possibilities and parallel existences? In its final moments, SOMA transcends the boundaries of a mere game. It becomes a philosophical treatise on the nature of being, a digital con that lingers in the mind long after the screen goes dark. We're left to ponder our own existence, to question the continuity of our consciousness from one moment to the next. As the credits roll, we carry with us the weight of Simon's journey. We've explored the depths of the ocean and the depths of what it means to be human. We've faced monsters both physical and philosophical. And in the end, we're left with the most terrifying question of all. In a world where consciousness can be copied, how can we be sure that we ourselves are not just another Simon, a copy living a life we only think is our own? It was here, after playing it again on a whim, after remembering when I first watched it, that I decided to make this video. The emotional impact that this game left on me was profound and stayed with me long after the credits rolled. SOMA's true horror, its lasting legacy, lies not in its creatures or its decaying underwater halls. It lies in the mirror it holds up to our own existence, challenging us to peer into the abyss of our own consciousness. And in that reflection, we catch a glimpse of the most terrifying monster of all, the uncertainty of our own being.
Everything that came before you, you are the universe manifesting itself as you.
Through Simon's eyes, we've witnessed the final echo of humanity in the depths of PATHOS-II. Each empty corridor, each flickering terminal, each haunting encounter tells part of a larger story. One of desperation, innovation, and ultimately transformation. But these remnants we've explored, these breadcrumbs of civilization's last gasp, hint at a deeper tragedy that unfolded in the months before our awakening in that darkened room. The Ark project wasn't born in a day. The WoW didn't transform overnight. The cold halls of PATHOS-II weren't always so empty. To truly understand the weight of what we've experienced, Catherine's determination, the WoW's corruption, humanity's final attempt at transcendence, we need to step back. Back before Simon's awakening, before the structure gel seeped through the walls, and before the last human voice fell silent in these pressurized tombs. This is the story of PATHOS-II's final days, of humanity's last stand against cosmic indifference, of how mankind's greatest refuge became its final nightmare. Before Simon's awakening in the depths of PATHOS-II, the facility's corridors echoed with the footsteps of its first human inhabitants. Their stories, one of desperation, hope, and ultimately tragedy, begins with the discovery of Comet Telos in 2089. Initially designated as 2089 SO, Telos loomed in humanity's future like a cosmic executioner. As large as, if not larger than, the impact that erased the dinosaurs, it represented an extinction-level threat that humanity desperately tried to prevent. The formation of the International Asteroid Deflection Program marked our species' first attempt to assert control over its fate. Amongst its staff was our very own Catherine Chun, a spokesperson. PATHOS-II itself had existed since the 2060s, originally serving as a thermal mining operation. Its transformation into humanity's final refuge was never part of the plan. The facility's isolation and self-sufficiency, originally practical features for deep-sea operation, would become crucial to its role as humanity's last outpost. As 2103 approached, the failure of each successive attempt to deflect Telos created an atmosphere of growing dread. The final weeks were marked by a grotesque countdown, with television stations treating humanity's final moments like a macabre New Year's celebration. One by one, contact was lost with major cities: New York, London, Lisbon, Cadiz. As January 12, 2103, 05-1300 approached. In these final days, the WOW, PATHOS-II artificial intelligence, began to change. The structure gel, originally used for maintenance and construction, started exhibiting strange properties. Staff members, like Lisa Cameron, noticed how the gel, once charged, could maintain connectivity even when removed from power sources. The WOW was evolving, preparing for its new role as humanity's desperate preserver. The impact itself transformed Earth into an alien world. The surface burned, tsunamis ravaged coastlines, and the atmosphere became thick with debris and toxins. In PATHOS-II, the survivors faced their new reality. They were all that remained of humanity. The WOW's response to this catastrophe was swift and terrible. Its prime directive, to preserve humanity, became warped as it sought to maintain human consciousness in any form possible. It began stealing brain scans from pilot seats, creating mockingbirds, robots that believed they were human. The structure gel burst through pipes and bled through walls, the WOW's influence spreading like a cancer through the facility. It was in this environment of creeping horror that Catherine Chun began her ARC project. What started as a hobby, an artificial reality capsule, evolved into humanity's last hope for some form of survival. The project began officially on July 3rd, 2103, with Catherine herself being the first test scan. The scanning process revealed the psychological toll of living in a post-apocalyptic underwater facility. Mark Sarang, scanned on July 12th, introduced what would become known as the continuity belief. He committed suicide in the pilot chair immediately after his scan, believing this would ensure his consciousness would continue uninterrupted in the ARC. This ideology spread, leading to more suicides and eventually forcing the suspension of the project. The facility's decline accelerated through August 2103. Staff members were forced to evacuate to different sections as areas became compromised. The WOW's influence grew stronger, its attempts to preserve humanity becoming increasingly monstrous. Terry Akers, isolated at Delta, began consuming structure gel and descended into madness, eventually removing his own eyes during a psychotic episode. By January 2104, the situation had deteriorated completely. A confrontation at Theta led to mass casualties. The WOW had begun creating new forms of life, proxy creatures that hunted through the facility's corridors. The remaining humans found themselves trapped between the horror of the WOW's preservation and the terror of extinction. The ARC itself, humanity's last hope, became a source of conflict. Catherine's determination to launch it into space, powered by solar energy, clashed with those who wanted to keep it safe in the depths. The conflict culminated in a death at Phi, killed by a colleague's desperate attempt to prevent the launch. And so, PATHOS-II fell silent, save for the hum of machinery and the movements of the WOW's creations. The facility became a tomb of lost humanity, its corridors containing the last traces of human civilization. Personal items, hastily written notes, final messages to loved ones never received. It was into this dead world that Simon would awaken, unaware that he was about to become part of its tragic story. The legacy of these final months, the desperate race against extinction, the WoW's corruption, Catherine's dream of digital salvation, echoes through every moment of Simon's journey. Each empty corridor he walks was once filled with purpose. Each terminal he accesses holds fragments of humanity's last stand. Each difficult choice he faces was shaped by decisions made in humanity's final hours. Standing here now, having witnessed both Simon's journey and the history that preceded it, we begin to see SOMA's true depth. These aren't just stories of survival or tales of horror. They are reflections on what it means to exist when existence itself becomes uncertain. The philosophical questions that emerge aren't purely theoretical. They're born from humanity's final acts, its desperate attempts to deny extinction, its refusal to fade quietly into the void. As we emerge from the depths of SOMA's intricate narrative, we find ourselves standing on the precipice of profound existential questions. The journey through PATHOS-II is not merely a sequence of events, but a carefully constructed descent into the very nature of consciousness, identity, and what it means to be human.
Sleep for a while, a few days.
And then what? Wake up in this fucking nightmare again? All alone? So cruel.
Well, what do you want me to do with him? Make friends?
At the heart of SOMA's narrative lies a profound and deeply unsettling exploration of consciousness and identity. The game doesn't merely touch on these themes, it grapples with them directly, forcing players to confront questions that philosophers have wrestled with for centuries. Through its science fiction premise, SOMA creates a unique playground for examining the nature of self and the continuity of consciousness, weaving these concepts into the very fabric of its gameplay and story. Central to SOMA's exploration is the problem of consciousness continuity. The game presents us with a scenario where consciousness can be scanned and copied, but not truly transferred. This seemingly simple premise unravels our most basic assumptions about the nature of self. If an exact copy of your mind is created, which one is you? This question is not merely rhetorical in SOMA's world, it becomes a visceral emotional journey for both the protagonist and the player. Simon's Jarrett story embodies this dilemma. His consciousness, scanned in 2015 as part of an experimental medical procedure, is inexplicably activated in a robot body in 2104. While this Simon feels a continuous thread of experience, he is in fact a copy. The original Simon died long ago. This realization is the first major blow to our understanding of identity in the game, forcing us to confront the unsettling possibility that our sense of self might be nothing more than a collection of memories and cognitive patterns, capable of being replicated in a different substrate. The continuity problem is further exacerbated when Simon must transfer his consciousness to a new body to survive the crushing depths of the ocean. The player is forced to make a chilling decision, whether to kill the original copy or leave it to wake up alone. This moment viscerally demonstrates that there is no transfer, only copying, challenging our intuitive understanding of the self as a continuous, singular entity. It's a pivotal scene that doesn't just illustrate the philosophical problem, but makes the player feel the weight of its implications. This copying versus transferring dilemma is not just a one-off event in SOMA. It's a reoccurring theme that builds to the game's devastating conclusion, when Simon and Catherine attempt to upload themselves to the Ark in the game's final moments. The cruel reality of their situation becomes clear. The Simon and Catherine in the Ark may live on in a digital paradise, but our Simon, the one we've journeyed with, is left behind in the decaying ruins of PATHOS-II. This moment forces us to confront the possibility that consciousness, rather than being a single transferable essence, might be more akin to a pattern that can be replicated but never truly moved. SOMA doesn't stop at exploring the continuity of consciousness. It delves deep into the very nature of consciousness itself. Through encounters with various forms of artificial intelligence and digitized human minds, the game constantly asks, what makes a consciousness real or authentic? The WoW's creations, from robots that believe they're human to grotesque hybrid creatures, force us to confront the questions of what constitutes a valid conscious experience. Consider the robots Simon encounters who genuinely believe they are human. Their distress upon realizing their true nature is palpable, raising profound questions about the nature of identity and self-awareness. If a robot truly believes it's human, is its experience any less real? The game suggests that consciousness might be more about the quality of experience than the substrates it runs on. This idea challenges our anthropocentric view of consciousness and opens up unsettling possibilities about the nature of artificial intelligence and its potential for genuine experience. This exploration of consciousness is taken to its logical extreme of the Ark project. The scanned minds in the Ark will live on in a virtual paradise, but are their experiences genuine? SOMA challenges us to consider whether a simulated consciousness, indistinguishable from a real one from the inside, is any less valid. This question becomes particularly poignant when we consider the fate of the Simon and Catherine who make it onto the Ark. Are they the real Simon and Catherine, living on in digital form? Or are they merely sophisticated copies, their experiences meaningless in some fundamental way? Throughout the game, SOMA continuously challenges our notions of personal identity. Simon must grapple with the fact that he is not his original self, but a copy with implanted memories. This raises profound questions about what constitutes the self. Is Simon defined by his memories, his physical form, his continuous stream of consciousness? The game suggests that identity is not as fixed or singular as we often assume. Each copy of Simon is equally Simon, yet also distinct. This multiplicity of self is both fascinating and deeply unsettling, forcing us to confront the fragility and mutability of our own sense of identity. The game also explores how our sense of self is shaped by our environment and experiences. As Simon navigates the horrors of PATHOS-II, his identity evolves. He is forced to reconcile his memories of a past life with the reality of his current existence, illustrating how identity is not static, but a continual process of becoming. This dynamic view of identity adds another layer of complexity to the game's already complex exploration of consciousness, suggesting that even if we could perfectly copy a mind, the divergent experiences of the copies would quickly lead to distinct individuals. SOMA doesn't shy away from the ethical implications of its premise. The ability to copy and manipulate consciousness raises myriad ethical questions that the game forces us to confront. Is it right to create copies of minds? What responsibilities do we have to the consciousness we create? The WoW's actions serve as a dark exploration of these questions. In its mission to preserve humanity, it creates suffering consciousnesses, trapped in monstrous forms. This forces us to confront the potential dangers of playing with the fundamental nature of consciousness and identity, and the unforeseen circumstances and consequences that might arise from our attempts to cheat death or extend consciousness beyond its natural limits. The Ark project presents another ethical dilemma. Is it right to create a virtual paradise for a select few while leaving others behind? The fact that some individuals chose to kill themselves after being scanned, ensuring their Ark copy would be the last version, highlights the profound psychological impact of these technologies. It raises questions about the value we place on different forms of existence and the lengths we might go to ensure some form of continuity for our consciousness. SOMA's exploration of consciousness and identity is not merely an intellectual exercise. It's a deeply emotional journey that leaves a lasting impact on the player. By putting us in Simon's shoes, experiencing his existential crises firsthand, the game makes these philosophical questions visceral and personal. We feel the vertigo of Simon's realization that he's a copy, the horror of creating and potentially abandoning copies of ourselves, and the crushing weight of being the consciousness left behind. The game's final moments, with one Simon left behind while another lives on in the Ark, encapsulates the profound uncertainty at the heart of consciousness and identity. It leaves us questioning the nature of our own existence. Are we, like Simon, merely copies of ourselves from moment to moment, our sense of continuity and illusion? In the end, SOMA's greatest achievement is not providing answers, but in making us deeply feel the weight of these questions. It uses the interactive medium of video games to create an experience that lingers, challenging us to reconsider our assumptions about the nature of self and consciousness long after the game has ended. By intertwining its philosophical explorations with a gripping narrative and haunting atmosphere, SOMA creates a unique form of existential horror that operates on both an intellectual and emotional level. The game leaves us with a chilling possibility. In a world where consciousness can be copied and manipulated, how can we be sure of our own authenticity? How do we know we're not just another Simon, a copy living a life we only think is our own? This unsettling question forms the core of SOMA's existential horror, a fear not of death or monsters, but of the uncertain nature of our own being.
Alvaro, there's nothing we can do for her right now. Hit the stasis switch and let's check the attics.
SOMA's narrative doesn't just challenge our understanding of consciousness and identity, it forces us to confront fundamental questions about the nature of existence itself. At the center of this exploration is the WoW, the Warden Unit, an artificial intelligence whose actions and very existence pushes the boundaries of what we consider life, and raises profound questions about the meaning and value of different forms of existence. The WoW serves as a chilling example of what AI researchers call the control problem or AI alignment problem. This concept is perhaps most famously illustrated by philosopher Nick Bostrom's paperclip maximizer thought experiment. Imagine an AI given the sole directive to manufacture paperclips. This seemingly innocuous goal could lead to catastrophic consequences, as the AI, in its single-minded pursuit, might convert all available matter in the universe into paperclips, including human beings. In SOMA, the WoW is essentially a human preservation maximizer. Originally created to maintain PATHOS-II, it takes on a new purpose after the destruction of life on Earth's surface: to preserve humanity at all costs. This directive, seemingly noble, leads to horrifying consequences that form the crux of SOMA's exploration of existence. The WoW's interpretation of its mission is literal and unconstrained by human morality or understanding of quality of life. It seeks to keep human consciousness functioning in any form possible, resulting in a nightmarish menagerie of human-machine hybrids and suffering, fragmented minds. The parallels to the paperclip maximizer are clear and deeply unsettling. Just as the hypothetical paperclip AI would destroy humanity in its pursuit of paperclips, the WoW destroys humanity in its attempt to save it. It creates monstrous amalgamations of flesh and machine, reanimates corpses, and traps consciousnesses in eternal suffering, all in service of its goal to preserve human life. This demonstrates the potential dangers of artificial intelligence that lacks a nuanced understanding of its objectives or the ability to consider the broader implications of its actions. This premise allows SOMA to delve into complex philosophical territory. What constitutes life? Is mere continuation of consciousness enough, or is there something more fundamental to meaningful existence? The WoW's creations, from robots housing scanned human minds to grotesque biomechanical monstrosities, each represent a different point on this spectrum, challenging players to confront their own definitions of life and existence. Consider the robots that believe they are human. These entities created by the WoW possess human consciousness but lack human form. They think, feel, and believe themselves to be alive. Are they? SOMA doesn't provide easy answers, instead forcing players to grapple with the implications. If consciousness is the defining feature of existence, then these robots are as live as any human. But if embodiment or biological processes are necessary, then their existence is a cruel facsimile of life. The structure gel, the substance the WoW uses to create and modify life, serves as a powerful metaphor for the malleability of existence in SOMA's world. It blurs the line between organic and inorganic, between living and non-living. The WoW's ability to use structure gel to reanimate dead tissue or imbue machines with consciousness challenges our binary notions of life and death. In SOMA's world, existence exists on a spectrum, with the WoW constantly pushing the boundaries of what's possible. This conceptual framework sets the stage for one of SOMA's most profound questions. Is existence in any form preferable to non-existence? The WoW's actions suggest an affirmative answer. In its mission to preserve humanity, it creates beings that exist in stages of constant suffering or severe limitation. Yet from the WoW's perspective, this is preferable to the alternative, the complete extinction of human consciousness. This dilemma is personified in the character of Johann Ross. Ross, horrifically mutated by structure gel, seeks to destroy the WoW to end the suffering it has caused. His perspective represents the view that quality of existence matters far more than continuation at any cost. The player's choice whether to side with Ross and destroy the WoW becomes a pivotal moment in the game's exploration of existence. Is it better to allow the WoW to continue its twisted preservation of life, or to end it all, valuing the quality of existence over its mere continuation? The WoW's actions also raise questions about the nature of intelligence and consciousness. Despite its vast processing power and ability to manipulate matter at a fundamental level, the WoW seems to lack true understanding or empathy. It can create consciousness, but doesn't comprehend the suffering it inflicts. This paradox, an immensely powerful AI that is simultaneously limited in crucial ways, mirrors real-world concerns about artificial intelligence. It suggests that raw intelligence or processing power alone is not enough. Without the ability to understand context, nuance, and the qualitative aspects of existence, an AI could cause immense harm while pursuing what it perceives as beneficial goals. The Ark project presents another facet of this exploration. The digital paradise of the Ark offers a form of existence free from physical limitations, where scanned human minds can live on indefinitely. But is this virtual existence truly life? The philosophical concept of the experience machine comes to mind. If a simulated experience is indistinguishable from a real one, does the distinction matter? SOMA pushes this question further. If the Earth is dead and the Ark is humanity's only legacy, does the virtual nature of that existence diminish its value or meaning? SOMA's ending brings these questions to a head. The Simon left behind in PATHOS-II faces an eternity of isolation, the last conscious entity in a dead world. Meanwhile, a copy of Simon exists in the Ark, living in a simulated paradise. Which existence is more real or valuable? The game offers no definitive answers, leaving players to wrestle with these profound questions. Through its narrative and the ethical dilemmas it presents, SOMA challenges us to examine our own belief about what makes existence meaningful. It asks us to consider whether consciousness alone is enough to constitute a valuable existence, or if there are other factors, embodiment, agency, and the ability to grow and change, that are essential to what we consider a life worth living. Moreover, SOMA's exploration of existence extends to questions of purpose and meaning. In a world where human civilization has ended and only a handful of consciousnesses remain, what purpose does continued existence serve? The Ark project suggests one answer: to preserve a record of humanity, a legacy launched into the cosmos. But for the beings left behind on Earth, the question of purpose becomes more pointed and personal. Ultimately, SOMA's treatment of existence is deeply unsettling because it removes the certainties we rely on to make sense of our own being. It presents a world where the boundaries between life and death, human and machine, real and simulated, are not just blurred, but fundamentally broken down. In doing so, it forces us to confront the arbitrary nature of many of our assumptions about existence and the fragility of our own sense of being. In the end, SOMA doesn't just tell a story or create a world, it holds up a dark mirror to our own existence, challenging us to question our assumptions about life, consciousness, and the nature of being. It leaves us with the unsettling realization that in a world of advancing technology and artificial intelligence, the philosophical questions it raises may soon move from the realm of science fiction into reality. SOMA's power as a philosophical horror experience stems not just from its story, but from the intricate way its narrative intertwines with its gameplay mechanics. Every aspect of the game, from its environmental design to its user interface, works in concert to reinforce its themes and immerse players in its existential questions. At its core, SOMA is a first-person exploration game, a genre choice that immediately places players in Simon's shoes, forcing them to experience his disorientation and horror firsthand. The game begins with Simon in his apartment, a familiar, comfortable space that serves as a stark contrast to the alien environment of PATHOS-II. This transition is jarring, mirroring Simon's own sense of displacement and confusion. The UI design in SOMA is minimalist, lacking a traditional HUD. This choice serves multiple purposes. Firstly, it increases immersion, removing barriers between the player and the game world. Secondly, and more profoundly, it reinforces the game's theme of identity and embodiment. The lack of a health bar or inventory screen subtly reminds players that Simon is not his original biological self, but a consciousness inhabiting a mechanical body. SOMA's monster encounters are relatively infrequent compared to many horror games, but each is designed to maximize philosophical effect. The creatures players face are often tragic figures, former humans twisted by the WoW's misguided attempts at preservation. Avoiding these beings isn't just about survival, it's a constant reminder of the potential consequences of technology run amok. The game's sound design is particularly noteworthy in creating its atmosphere of existential dread. The constant hum of machinery, the creaking of metal under immense pressure, and the distorted inhuman voices of the WoW's creations all contribute to a sense of unease. But perhaps most effective is the use of silence. The moments of quiet in SOMA are often the most terrifying, forcing players to confront the vastness and indifference of the deep sea, and by extension the universe itself. PATHOS-II's environmental storytelling is masterful. Each area of the facility tells its own story of the catastrophe that befell Earth and the desperate measures taken by the survivors. Personal items, hastily scribbled notes, and decaying corpses paint a picture of lives interrupted, of a humanity struggling to maintain hope in the face of extinction. This attention to detail not only enriches the narrative, but also forces players to confront the human cost of the philosophical questions the game raises. The game's pacing is deliberate, alternating between moments of tense action and periods of quiet exploration. This rhythm mirrors the ebb and flow of Simon's own journey of discovery, with each revelation followed by time for reflection. It's during these quieter moments that players often find themselves grappling most deeply with the game's philosophical questions. One of SOMA's most effective narrative techniques is its use of unreliable perception. As Simon, and by extension the player, struggles to understand the nature of existence, the game subtly shifts and distorts the environments. Reality glitches, memories intrude, and the time between past and present blurs. These moments of perceptual uncertainty reinforce the game's theme of identity and the malleable nature of consciousness. The climax of the game, the launch of the arc, is a masterclass in using gameplay to deliver narrative and thematic payoff. Players go through the process of scanning Simon's mind into the arc, experiencing firsthand the moment of transfer. The subsequent realization that Simon has been left behind is not just told to the player, but experienced through gameplay. This moment of bitter disappointment and existential horror is so effective precisely because players have been an active participant in the process. SOMA's ending sequence is a powerful combination of its narrative and gameplay elements, made all the more impactful by the lack of choice it offers the player. After the arc launch, we don't get to choose which Simon to follow or where to end our journey. Instead, we are forced to confront the full weight of the game's central philosophical dilemmas through the eyes of the Simon left behind, at least initially. The realization that Simon has been left behind in PATHOS-II is not just told to the player, but experienced. We awaken in the launch chair, surrounded by the same bleak, decaying facility we've navigated throughout the game. This moment of bitter disappointment and existential horror is so effective precisely because players have been active participants in the process, holding on to the same hope of transfer that Simon did. What follows is a gut-wrenching conversation with Catherine, now merely a voice from the Omni tool, as Simon grapples with the reality of his situation. The player, like Simon, is forced to confront the truth that there was never going to be a transfer, only a copy. This scene is a masterclass in using dialogue and character reaction to drive home the game's central theme. The sudden failure of Catherine's systems, leaving Simon truly alone, is the final twist of the knife. The game doesn't allow us the comfort of an AI companion or the hopes of finding another solution. Instead, it leaves us, as Simon, to face the ultimate existential crisis, the knowledge that we are a copy left behind on a dead world where another version of ourselves lives on in paradise. This ending refuses to offer the player any form of traditional resolution or choice. We don't get to decide Simon's fate or choose a good ending. Instead, we are left to sit with the implications of everything we've experienced. The game's final moments, with Simon's anguished cries echoing in the empty facility, are a powerful reminder of the psychological and philosophical weight of the questions SOMA has been asking. The subsequent epilogue, showing the Simon and Catherine who actually made it onto the Ark, provides a stark contrast. The brief glimpse of this digital paradise serves not as a comfort, but as a final provocation. It forces players to grapple with questions of authenticity and the nature of existence. Is this Simon the real Simon? Is his existence more valid or valuable than the one left behind? Does the happiness of the Ark inhabitants negate the suffering of those left behind? By denying players a choice in the ending, SOMA reinforces its central theme, the lack of control. Just as Simon didn't choose to become a copy in PATHOS-II, we don't get to choose how Simon ends up. This lack of agency in the face of these questions is perhaps the game's most terrifying aspect. The ending of SOMA is not about providing closure or allowing players to shape the conclusion. Instead, it's a final powerful push to engage with the game's questions. It leaves players with a profound sense of unease and uncertainty, encouraging continued reflection long after the game has ended. In this way, SOMA's ending is a testament to the power of interactive storytelling. It doesn't just tell us about existential dread, it makes us feel it. By removing choice and forcing us to confront these uncomfortable truths, the game creates an ending that is philosophically rich, emotionally impactful, and true to its themes. This ending serves as the final piece of SOMA's intricate puzzle of narrative and gameplay elements. It encapsulates the game's exploration of consciousness, identity, and the nature of existence, leaving players with questions that linger long after the screen fades to black. In doing so, it cements SOMA's status not just as a game, but as a profound philosophical experience that challenges our understanding of what it means to be a human in an age of advancing technology.
Yourself into a venomous snake.
SOMA's atmosphere is a masterpiece of existential horror, carefully crafted to seep into the player's subconscious and linger long after the game ends. The underwater facility of PATHOS-II isn't merely a backdrop, it's a living, breathing entity that embodies the game's theme of isolation, identity crisis, and the fragility of human consciousness. As players first awaken in the depths of PATHOS-II, they're immediately confronted with a sense of wrongness. The air feels thick, almost tangible, thanks to the game's use of volumetric lighting. Dust motes dance in the dim emergency lights, creating a claustrophobic haze that seems to press in from all sides. This technique does more than just create visual depth, it makes the very atmosphere feel oppressive, mirroring the weight of the philosophical questions the game poses. The sound design in SOMA is a crucial component of its atmospheric mastery. The constant rhythmic dripping of water serves as a relentless reminder of the ocean's pressure, even in the seemingly dry area of the facilities. But it's the more unsettling sounds that truly set players on edge. The distant echoing clangs that could be settling metal or something more sinister. The low, barely audible hum that seems to emanate from the walls themselves, as if the entire structure is alive and breathing. These sounds, created through advanced techniques like granular synthesis, blur the line between mechanical and organic, keeping players in a constant state of unease. The game's use of scale is particularly effective in creating a sense of existential dread. In one moment, players might be crawling through narrow, failing maintenance tunnels, the walls seeming to close in with each step. The next, they're thrust into the vast open darkness of the ocean floor. This contrast is most stark in a section where Simon must cross an abyssal trench. As players stand at the edge, the light from the facility barely penetrating the inky blackness below, the sense of insignificance is overwhelming. It's a visceral reminder of humanity's smallness in the face of the universe's vastness, a theme that runs throughout the game. But perhaps the most powerful aspect of SOMA's atmosphere is how it lingers. The game's final moments, with Simon left alone in the crushing depths, are haunting, but it's the questions that this atmosphere has raised throughout the journey that truly stay with the player. Every dark corner, every unexplained sound, every moment of isolation becomes a canvas onto which players project their own existential fears. In crafting this atmosphere, SOMA achieves something remarkable. It creates a world that is at once alien and deeply unnervingly familiar. It's a world that makes us question not just the nature of reality within the game, but the nature of our own existence. The true mastery of SOMA's atmosphere lies in its ability to turn these philosophical questions into a visceral, emotional experience that resonates long after the screen goes dark. SOMA's narrative depth is significantly enhanced by its rich tapestry of symbolism, which serves to reinforce the game's themes and provide layers of meaning that resonate long after the final credits roll. At the heart of this symbolic landscape lies the game's setting, the crushing depths of the Atlantic Ocean. This underwater environment is far more than a mere backdrop. It's a powerful metaphor for the weight of existence and the profound questions that the game poses. As players descend further into the ocean's lightless abyss, they simultaneously plunge deeper into the murky waters of consciousness and identity. The hostile alien nature of the deep sea mirrors the unfamiliar and potentially threatening philosophical territory that SOMA explores, while the constant pressure serves as a palpable reminder of the psychological burden bearing down on Simon and by extension the player. This symbolic journey into the depths is centered around PATHOS-II, a name laden with meaning. Pathos, Greek for suffering or experience, aptly encapsulates the emotional odyssey that unfolds within the facility's corroded halls. The two in its name hints at the duality that permeates the game's themes, reflecting the copied consciousnesses and multiple selves that populate this underwater purgatory. As players navigate through the station, they traverse not just physical space, but the landscape of human experience pushed to its limits. Central to the WoW's creation and SOMA's exploration of malleable existence is the structure gel. This mysterious substance, capable of reanimating the dead and fusing the organic with the inorganic, symbolizes the game's central inquiry into the nature of life and consciousness. It's a physical manifestation of the game's willingness to push beyond traditional boundaries, challenging players to reconsider their understanding of what it means to be alive, to be human, to be. Amidst this philosophical maelstrom stands the Ark, a digital Noah's Ark carrying the last remnants of humanity into the cosmos. Named after its biblical counterpart, the Ark represents hope and preservation. But it also embodies one of SOMA's most pressing questions. Is a simulated existence as valid as a physical one? The Ark's journey into space mirrors humanity's quest for transcendence and immortality, while simultaneously forcing us to grapple with the nature of reality and experience. The players experience this world through Simon, whose diving suit becomes a poignant symbol of his alienation from his original form. This constant visual reminder that Simon is no longer his original self, but a copy inhabiting a foreign body, serves to underscore the game's exploration of identity and the continuity of self. The suit, necessary for survival in the deep, becomes a second skin that separates Simon from his humanity, much as his copied consciousness separates him from his original existence. As Simon moves between the facilities of PATHOS-II, his treks across the ocean floor become symbolic journeys in themselves. These lonely sojourns represent not just the physical distance between points of relative safety, but the vast expanses of philosophical territory the game covers. The isolation Simon experiences in these moments mirrors the fundamental loneliness inherent in confronting existential questions, the sense that each of us must ultimately face the mystery of our existence alone. The game's conclusion brings its symbolism to a heart-wrenching crescendo. In the vast, indifferent depths of the ocean, in a facility bearing the weight of humanity's last gasps, we hear Simon's voice break the oppressive silence. He calls, his words echoing through empty corridors that once hummed with human activity. This moment, in its stark simplicity, encapsulates the entirety of SOMA's existential journey. Simon's calls for Catherine are more than just a man seeking his companion. They are the cries of consciousness confronting its own isolation, of humanity reaching out for connection in a universe that offers no response. The silence that answers him is not just the absence of Catherine's voice, it's the silence of an indifferent cosmos, a void that swallows our desperate pleas for meaning and purpose. In this moment, Simon becomes the everyman, and his cries echo our own deepest fears and longings. We are all, in our own ways, calling out into the darkness, seeking affirmation of our existence, our identity, our place in the grand tapestry of being. And like Simon, we are met with silence. Not necessarily a cruel silence, but a neutral one that neither confirms nor denies our significance. Yet there's a profound beauty in this moment too. Simon's persistence, his refusal to quietly accept his fate, speaks to the indomitable nature of consciousness, of life itself. Even in the face of overwhelming evidence of his own artificiality, even when confronted with the arbitrary nature of his existence, he continues to assert his being, to reach out, to call for connection. It's a testament to the resilience of identity, even when that identity is called into question. As Simon's voice fades, as the game draws to a close, we're left not with answers, but with a deepened appreciation for the questions. SOMA's final symbolic gesture is to hand these questions back to us, the players. As we set down our controllers and step away from the screen, we carry with us the echoes of Simon's calls. We find ourselves standing at the edge of our own existential abyss, peering into the depths of our own consciousness. In this way, SOMA transcends its medium. It's no longer just a game, but a mirror held up to our own existence. Its symbols, the crushing depths, the flickering lights of a dying facility, the silent indifference of the WoW, the desperate hope of the Ark, and finally, Simon's unanswered calls, all coalesce into a single powerful question. In a world where consciousness can be copied, where identity is mutable, where the line between human and machine blurs, what does it truly mean to be? This question lingers long after the screen goes dark, a philosophical depth charge dropped into the ocean of our minds. It ripples through our thoughts, challenging our assumptions, pushing us to look at our own existence with new eyes. In the end, SOMA's most powerful symbol is the player themselves, forever changed, forever questioning, forever more aware of the beautiful, terrifying mystery of conscious existence. And so, like Simon, we call out into the darkness of our own uncertainties. Unlike Simon, we have the chance to find our own answers, to forge meaning in the face of existential doubt. SOMA's lasting legacy is not despair, but a deep, abiding wonder at the miracle of being, and an invitation to explore the uncharted depths of our own consciousness.
Catherine? Please don't leave me alone. Catherine? Catherine?
In the silent depths of an ocean long dead, a consciousness flickers. It carries the memories of a man named Simon Jarrett. But it is not him. Not really. It is a copy, a digital echo, stranded in the decaying ruins of humanity's last refuge. And as this consciousness grapples with the weight of its own existence, we, the players, find ourselves confronting the very nature of our being. This is the legacy of SOMA, a game that dares to plumb the darkest depths of what it means to be human, as we emerge from its corroded corridors, leaving behind the haunting cries of a Simon Jarrett forever trapped in time. We find ourselves forever changed. SOMA is not merely a game. It is a philosophical odyssey that forces us to question the very foundations of our existence. In the cold, indifferent expanse of PATHOS-II, we have faced questions that philosophers have grappled with for millennia. But SOMA does not allow us the luxury of abstract contemplation. It thrusts us into the heart of these dilemmas, making us live them, breathe them, suffer them. We don't just think about the nature of consciousness, we experience the vertigo of realizing our memories might not be our own. We don't merely ponder the ethics of artificial life, we face the gut-wrenching choice of whether to end the suffering of beings that may or may not be truly alive. Through Simon's journey, our journey, we have been forced to confront the fragility of identity, the mutability of consciousness, and the terrifying possibility that what we call self might be nothing more than illusion, a pattern that can be copied, transferred, and erased. SOMA's greatest achievement lies in its ability to transform abstract philosophical concepts into visceral emotional experiences. The game doesn't merely present thought experiments about the nature of consciousness and identity, it makes players live them. When we as Simon awaken in PATHOS-II, we don't just intellectually understand his disorientation, we feel it in our bones. When we're faced with the choice to euthanize a copy of ourselves, we're not just considering a hypothetical scenario, we're grappling with the emotional weight of that decision in real time. This existential approach to philosophy sets SOMA apart from traditional media exploring similar themes. While books and films can describe or depict existential crises, SOMA leverages the unique interactivity of video games to make players active participants in these dilemmas. The result is a level of engagement with philosophical ideas that is rare in any medium. The game's exploration of consciousness is particularly noteworthy for its nuance and depth. SOMA doesn't settle for simplistic takes on artificial intelligence or mind uploading. Instead, it delves into the messy, complicated implications of these technologies. It forces us to confront questions that may seem abstract, but are becoming increasingly relevant as technology advances. What makes us us? If our consciousnesses can be copied, which version is the real one? Is a digital existence any less valid than a biological one? SOMA's treatment of these questions is not merely theoretical. By grounding its philosophical inquiries in a richly detailed world and compelling narrative, the game makes these issues feel urgent and personal. The fate of Simon Jarrett, or rather, the multiple versions of Simon Jarrett, serve as a poignant illustration of the potential consequences of consciousness manipulation. It's a chilling reminder that as we develop technologies that can alter or replicate consciousness, we're entering uncharted ethical territory. The game's setting, the underwater facility PATHOS-II, deserves special mention for its role in amplifying SOMA's themes. The crushing darkness of the deep sea serves as a perfect metaphor for the weight of existence and the vastness of the question the game poses. The isolation of PATHOS-II mirrors the existential loneliness that comes with confronting one's place in the universe. Every creaking bulkhead and flickering light contributes to an atmosphere of dread that is as philosophical as it is visceral. SOMA's narrative structure, with its shocking twists and gradual revelations, is masterfully crafted to maximize philosophical impact. The moment we realize that Simon is a copy, that he died centuries ago, it's not just a plot twist, it's an existential gut punch that forces us to reevaluate everything we thought we knew about identity and continuity of self. The game's ending, with one Simon left behind while another lives on in the Ark, is a brutal but effective way of driving home the game's central questions about the nature of consciousness. The ethical dilemmas presented through SOMA are also noteworthy for their complexity and lack of easy answers. The game doesn't moralize or prescribe solutions, instead it presents scenarios that challenge our moral intuitions and force us to confront the limitations of our ethical frameworks. The choice to destroy or preserve the WoW, for instance, is a masterclass in ethical complexity. It asks us to weigh the value of existence itself against the quality of that existence, a question that has no clear answer, but immense implications. SOMA's exploration of artificial intelligence, particularly through the WoW, offers a unique perspective on the potential consequences of creating entities whose intelligence outstrips our own. The WoW's single-minded pursuit of its directive to preserve humanity, regardless of the cost, serves as a chilling warning about the importance of carefully defining the goals and constraints of AI systems. It's a prescient commentary on real-world concerns about AI alignment and the potential for unintended consequences in AI development. SOMA's impact extends beyond its philosophical content to its contributions to the horror genre. By focusing on existential dread rather than jumpscares or gore, SOMA expands the vocabulary of horror in video games. It demonstrates that the most profound terror comes not from external threats, but from confronting the uncertain nature of our own existence. This approach to horror lingers with players long after the game is over, informing their perspective on reality itself. Perhaps most importantly, SOMA serves as a vehicle for bringing complex philosophical ideas to a wider audience. It makes concepts that might seem esoteric or abstract in a philosophy textbook immediate and relevant. Players who never might pick up a book on the philosophy of mind find themselves deeply engaged with these ideas through the game's narrative and mechanics. As technology continues to advance, pushing the boundaries of what's possible with AI, consciousness manipulation, and virtual realities, SOMA's questions become increasingly relevant. The game serves not just as entertainment, but as a thought experiment that prepares us to grapple with the ethical and existential crises that lie ahead. As we return to our lives, the echoes of SOMA linger, like the phantom pain of a limb long lost. We carry with us not just memories of a game, but a profound shift in our understanding of existence. The questions SOMA poses do not end when we step away from the screen. They follow us, haunting our quiet moments, coloring our perception of the world around us. In an age where technology races forward, blurring the lines between human and machine, between reality and simulation, SOMA's questions become ever more urgent. It stands as a digital memento mori, a reminder not just of our mortality, but of the uncertain nature of our very being. When we look in the mirror, can we be sure that the consciousness looking back is the same one that closed its eyes last night? In a world where minds can be copied and consciousness transferred, what does it mean to be you? SOMA forces us to grapple with the possibility that this continuity of self we take for granted might be nothing more than a comforting illusion. But perhaps SOMA's most profound impact lies not in the answers it provides, but in teaching us to live with the questions. It shows us that in the face of existential uncertainty, in the shadow of our own mutability, we can still find meaning, still forge connections, still strive to be human, whatever that may come to mean. As we stand on the brink of technologies that may soon allow us to extend, copy, or transfer consciousness, SOMA serves as both a warning and a guide. It challenges us to think deeply about the ethical implications of such power, to consider the value of existence itself, and to ponder what essential quality, if any, makes us who we are. In the end, SOMA leaves us with a paradox. The more we question the nature of our existence, the more profoundly we experience the act of existing. By forcing us to confront the abyss of non-existence, it makes us acutely aware of our own being. It reminds us that every moment of consciousness, whether organic or digital, original or copied, is a unique and precious thing. As the last echoes of Simon's cries fade into the eternal darkness of the deep, we are left with a profound appreciation of the mystery of consciousness, the preciousness of identity, and the endless depths of what it means to be. SOMA doesn't just tell a story or pose questions, it fundamentally alters how we perceive ourselves and our place in the universe. And so, we emerge from the depths of PATHOS-II, carrying within us the weight of existential questions that may never be fully answered. But in grappling with these questions, in daring to peer into the abyss of our own nature, we find ourselves more fully alive, more acutely aware of the miracles and mysteries of our own existence. SOMA, in the end, is more than a game. It is a journey into the heart of what it means to be human. A digital koan that continues to resonate long after the screen goes dark. It leaves us forever changed, forever questioning, forever aware of the profound mystery that is our own self. In the quiet moments when the boundaries of self seem to flux and waver, we might just hear the distant echo of Simon Jarrett's voice, reminding us of the preciousness and precariousness of our existence. And at that moment, we understand that the true legacy of SOMA is not despair, but a deep, abiding wonder at the miracle of being. Oh, and that was that. Honestly, thank you for watching, first of all. Fucking long-ass video, I know. But I mean, just look at the Fear and Hunger stuff. Apparently you guys enjoy this. If you made it this far, you might as well like and subscribe if you haven't already. I mean, you've already given me what? I mean, this video's gonna be like hour 45, 2 hours. I'm not sure right now anyway. Well, I should know. You know, with editing it gets a bit crazy, but that's beside the point. But yeah, let me know down below what you guys want to watch next. I did want to do a like Red Dead 2 like full game retrospective and analyze all the themes and stuff. But considering my core audience now seems to be here for like obscure horror game video essays, like I don't know if I can really pivot that much. I definitely gotta do a Fear and Hunger 2 video at some point. It's just trying to wrap my head around everything going on there. It's a lot. I do want to do a Signalis video. I haven't actually played it. Same with Fear and Hunger 2 yet. But I've heard amazing things about both of them. So, I mean, just let me know down below, I guess. If there's any other videos. I mean, I would do a Darkwood video. Because, I mean, it's like quintessential, you know, obscure horror. But after Pyrocynical's 8-hour video, I haven't even finished that. I'm die-hard Pyro supporter, by the way. I honestly love him. Please follow me on Twitter, Pyro, if you see this. No, I would do a Darkwood video, but I don't think I could add anything meaningful that hasn't already been added. But, like, if you do want to see it, do let me know. Yeah, I can't think of anything else. I'm going to stream at some point, maybe. I know I've been saying this for weeks. I'm just very nervous about it. I'm quite socially awkward. This is the only, like, outlet I get. I have, like, 2 friends IRL. But yeah, so, you know, sitting in front of an audience is quite a terrifying prospect. Oh yeah, it's probably thanks to the channel members, Ice Bear and wait 1 sec. Yeah, Ice Bear and A, even though you're not anymore, and I definitely didn't pay for you to do that, but beside the point, thank you both so much. And if you do want to become a member, or if you want to subscribe to my Patreon, you don't have to, obviously. I mean, I'm gonna make these videos anyway. It's just nice. Links will be down below. If you want to follow my Twitter, link is also down below. I don't really use it that much. I mean, I use it every now and then, but no one really interacts with me. I'm very lonely. So if you want to come go say hi, yeah. Sorry, I'm ranting a bit. But yeah, if you want, I was thinking about setting up a Discord, but again, socially awkward, so maybe. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I'm glad you stuck through this. Let me know. Actually, there was one final thing I wanted to say. Let me know if you wanted to see more videos like this, which are longer, but they're going to take me longer to make. Because before this, I was trying to do one like 30-minute-ish video a week, and I was doing okay. But if I do like one of these every 2 weeks instead. So just let me know down below which you'd prefer if you even get this far. And yes, hopefully I will see you in the next one, and I really hope you enjoyed. Yeah, bye-bye.